And when I said before that there is this appetite for destruction, this is something that is seen around me, and it's not frightening me, but it's something that we should try to prevent, and we should try to educate people. Yes, we, second generation, maybe we can play a positive role.
I think that we have a role, because we have a little more distance than our parents did, that have these witnessed things on their brain, imprinted on their brain and in their feeling, and they have incredible losses they've had to compensate for and deal with. And we inherited part of that, a little, sometimes very, very strong parts of that, but we have the distance so that we can look at them or look at our lives in perspective to bigger things. And because we have an advantage of material well-being, we're
safe.
Privileged,
we're privileged.
To think
Absolutely.
this out.
Yes.
We're not working to earn our bread every morning, like in some parts of the world, most of the world.
Yeah. It has also to do, I think, with a lack of imagination. If you talk now to people, even of my generation, younger people, they cannot imagine that war will come to us. They think war is something Afghanistan, and it's also, maybe we should just do sentences. I've been to many war zones. I think it's also connected probably to the story of my parents, but I wanted to see war with my own eyes.
Tell us about that.
Well, of course, I never experienced war. I was drafted, but at that time, because I refused to finish high school, my parents had sent me to a psychiatrist. And this psychiatrist, he was a funny man in a way. He said, I don't think it's a good idea for you to go to the army. So he said, I will write a letter to the Ministry of Defense, but you're not allowed to see what's in the letter. He wrote a letter. I got a telegram that the Kingdom of the Netherlands would not rely on my services as a soldier, not even in times of war. So, I'm not sure what was in the letter. Of course, a few years later, the draft was abandoned in the Netherlands. But then when in 2006, I had this column in a Dutch newspaper and more about my life, about my private life, about my literary life. And then there was this war in Afghanistan and the Dutch soldiers were going there. And I thought, as an author, I should step also outside my comfort zone. And I never told my mother at that time, my father passed away in 91, that I was going there. I told my mother I was going somewhere else. But it was the first time I went to Afghanistan. I've been back there. I was embedded with Dutch, German and US soldiers. And these experiences were quite important to me. And I was also alone in Baghdad. So I wouldn't say that I thought I was never really in danger. We had some attacks on the camp, but it gave me a sense of what it meant to be, what it meant to take a risk and that you could be killed. Because like with an explosive device on a road, an IDS I believe it's called, one of the officers in the army told me, there's nothing you can do against it. We have these protective vehicles, but if we hit a bomb, some of us are going to die, but the chances are not that big, and it's outside our control. It's inshallah. He used the word, it's inshallah. Inshallah. It's in God's hands. And this gave me okay, and he was so calm about it. I thought this taught me a big lesson, that some things you cannot control. Right. We believe everything in our societies, we should control everything, and it's impossible. Some things are out of our hands, and otherwise also you will get crazy.
I think that is indeed the best way to combat your problems, is to discern between those things.
Absolutely.
What is beyond my control?
And what?
Let's not think about it too much. And what is within my control, I can actually take action.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I feel guilty because my work is so important. I give so much time to my work and I'm not spending enough time with my godson. Well, of course, it's also for good reason. I think that although I'm 45, I don't have children, I don't have a family yet. I would like maybe one day, in the near future, to have a child. But till now, I always thought that having this children or child in my life or having a family would be a danger to my work, would be a danger to my achievements.
Well, I would rather conclude that having a child is a danger to your feeling of safety.
That's a better,
because I think that you feel an incredible need to protect them, and you already had that with your mom.
Yeah, that was enough. That's enough. No, exactly, not again.
Now I have 9 grandchildren. I'm telling you, I'm always trying to say, Don't get upset. Let them make their mistakes. Let them hurt themselves.
No.
Let them get sick. Let them not want to see me. That hasn't happened yet, but I've had my problems with my own son because he's trying to deal with my overprotectiveness and whatever else I might have ruined for him. But the next thing would be, how do you deal with people who say, well, my parents say that somebody made this up and it never really happened?
Yeah. This almost always connected to anti-Semitism, of course, and it's a big problem. It's like the conspiracy theory. You don't see it only with the Holocaust. You see it with 9/11. You see it with many other things. And in the old days, these things probably were being said, but like in a bar or just on the street. But now, thanks to the internet, they are out and open. Everybody can express themselves. There's freedom of expression. That's very good. And people will comment on it and will leave these comments on the side. I do hope, especially in a place like the Netherlands or the US, it's a relatively small minority. And it's hard to educate these people, but you can, the children of these people, or children who think that this is a hoax, that the Holocaust is a hoax, that history is a hoax, I think you can talk to them or open the communication. I think without a dialogue, people will only become more convinced of their own false theories. If nobody's talking to you, if you only see people who agree with you, you will never be able to think that, hey, I may be wrong. This is not what happened. But the Holocaust deniers have been with us, and they will be with us forever. I think that, but hopefully they will remain a small minority. And hopefully they will not, like this is also, that's good, that, for example, that this man in the UK, this Labour man, I think, who, I forgot his name, but he was forced to resign because he said that Hitler was a Zionist, and basically that, of course, this is where it begins. It begins when people say that Nazis and the Jews are equal. They don't differ. And what makes it more difficult, and we haven't touched on it because I think it's such a sensitive issue, but it's important, is the whole state of Israel. The fact that what it means, you have to, as a Jew, especially in Europe, you have to respond to it. You have to say, people come to you and say, what's your opinion about it? So it's very difficult for many people, even for intelligent and moderate people, to distinguish between a Jew and an Israeli. So,
do you want to do that? Expound upon that?
To me, it's very personal, of course, because my sister is a settler, and it's an important question because, in a way, Israel was built to give the Jewish people a feeling of safety, a home.
For the first time.
For the first time, and I'm not at all an anti-Zionist. I'm not a Zionist, but I think anti-Zionism is uglier than Zionism. But nowadays, sometimes I have the feeling that the state of Israel is making the Jews in outside Israel unsafe. Ironically, do you catch my drift? Because it's an excuse. It's a very smart excuse for another way of being anti-Semitic. I think it's Johnson. His name is Johnson. He said that I'm not against the Jews in Europe. I'm against the Jews in Israel. And this is because I'm only against the Jews in Israel. This is honorable. This is respectful. I'm against colonialism. I'm against this police state, this apartheid state that Israel has become. So I can be against the Jewish people in Israel.
Well, we looked up the word Zionist today. That actually means, pro-Israel. It's to have a home. It's basically to secure a home.
Yeah.
And but I've always thought, oddly enough, they're more. If every Jew in the world would go back to Israel,
it would be a new ghetto. First of all,
it would make them much more vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So I've never understood what's the big deal. I'd say spread them out.
Spread. Well, of course, the experience.
I'm not pro-Jewish or anti-Jewish. I think that everybody has the right to their own beliefs.
Yes, I do. I do. Everybody has. Yes, can whatever. I do believe that you have freedom of expression and opinion, and you can be, even if you should be allowed to say, "I hate the Jews." or whatever minority. I hate the white people. You can say whatever you want, but is it acceptable from a moral point of view, or is this something that you should take seriously? That's the question. Because just it's like a stupid statement. I hate. Why would you hate? You can hate a person. Yeah, but you cannot hate like a group of people. That's doesn't make sense.
I think people hate seeing gays express their love for one another. That seems to really get people riled up.
Yeah, but then I'm very much a Freudian. So I would say when people hate gay, that's because they hate the gay inside themselves, of course.
That's right. I think the same things. A lot of times I think, why would you be angry?
Of course, it's because they become so aggressive because it's so personal. Because they see something that they would like, that's also inside them as well. But going back to the question of Israel, and then it's difficult because you see that the distinction between anti-Zionism and anti-Judaism or anti-Jewish expressions is so hard to make. And you say, I'm not against or for the Jews. No, but I'm against discrimination, whether it's against Muslims or against Jewish people, and that's something.
Be against that.
Yeah.
And before everybody.
Yeah,
actually.
a small example. Last Friday I went to a prison in Arnhem to give a writing workshop. I worked with prisoners. It was the third time that I did it. And the director of this detention center told me that for people outside prison, for normal people, and normal people, of course, what's normal, they are not able to believe that they will ever be a prisoner themselves. They think, I'm not a criminal. How can I identify with a prisoner? He's so different from me. He's like he's like a pig, or he's more an animal, you know? And then this director told me, I had a group of people, really like, they were, I think from a Rotary club. And I asked them, be honest. How many of you have been driving a car under the influence of alcohol? 50% of them said, yes, I have to be honest, I did it. And then he said, imagine that you killed a child, or a man or a woman, while driving under the influence. You know what could have happened to you. You could have been here in this prison. So the step from being outside prison, inside prison, is not as big as we think. And it's what people think to forget. And it's also the step, not that Jewish people are prisoners, or that people, but the step of being a concentration camp prisoner, or not a concentration camp prisoner, is not. It's not the Jewish people, it's not the Muslims, that's the mistake.